Tools required to assemble the breeching door for Jersey Tactical. Dead blow hammer. Flashlight. A tapered pin to line up holes. A ratchet wrench with a 3/4 inch socket. I also have an electric ratchet with a deep socket. The electric ratchet's not required, but you will need both a deep and shallow socket and an open end 3/4 inch spanner. When you receive your breeching door, there will be a box of hardware. In the box of hardware, there are 2 3/4 inch long hex head bolts. 7 of them attach the breeching door to the base plate. There are 6 5-inch long hex head bolts that attach the sides to the front of the breeching door assembly. And there are 2 bolts 3 inches long that attach the horizontal cross brace located at the top of the structure. All of these are in bags, they're labeled. Plus there's a bag labeled extra hardware, which gives you at least one example of everything you'll need. Removal of the lower shipping bar and placement of the front section of the door for assembly.
This requires 2 people. The bar that he's referring to is at the base, and that's used for shipping.
Okay. Nick, hold this vertically. It's yours. You're going to hold vertical. You're going to put your foot on the bottom bar. Here we are. You're holding it vertical. Keep your foot on the bottom bar. Okay? Now, leave the bottom bar. What you're going to do is, we're going to try to avoid dragging. We're simply going to kind of lift in place close to where the holes are. Center. There we are. Good. Using the dead blow hammer and the punch as an alignment tool, I'm locating the bottom bolts in the lower plate. 2 3/4 inch long screws secure the bottom tube to the lower plate. I am starting, and these should start easily by hand, but not tightening the bolts. The bolts are not tight, but they are started into the threaded hole in the lower plate. Nick is holding the assembly vertical so that it does not topple. A flashlight is very useful for aligning these pieces as necessary. All right, Nick, come to this side, please. The shipping bar holds the 2 sides of this in alignment during shipping. When you remove it, you can expect this to close up a little bit. So right now, this hole is located too far in this direction to line up with the hole in the base plate. However, it needs to line up with that hole. So I am going to we're good? We're good? Starting 2 bolts on one side, using the taper pin to locate this, and then starting this bolt
So you notice he took his time, aligned it a few times. That's in order to make sure he doesn't cross thread that bolt. That's super important. That's one of the most important steps. Take your time aligning it. Make sure you do not cross thread those bolts to the threaded holes in the base plate. Cannot say it again. Do not cross thread those.
The left-hand side assembly has a tie-down ring at the top, rear, 3 holes that will match up with the 3 holes in the front and 2 holes in the base. So I'm going to lift and place this here. Your helper is holding the front plate vertically, and I'm not really worried about alignment here. What I need to do is I need to get one of these 5-inch bolts in place, and this will hold the front panel up and square. So again, none of my bolts are tight at this point. I start everything before I tighten anything. And I'm going to take this 5-inch hex head screw, and I'm going to start this and just hand tight several threads. Now you can release that nick, and this will stay in position while we do the remaining alignment. Again, with my tapered pin, two and 3/4 bolt, split lock washer, and flat washer. Put in place much in the same way. This side has a track located for placement of a breeching window if required. We place this on the base plate. We take one 5-inch screw, usually in the center hole, and we put it in place just to hold the assembly while we continue. Start the nut a couple turns. Back to the bottom is our next step. By putting the lower plate on some small pieces of 4x4, I can put a flashlight underneath and see through the holes for alignment purposes. This makes assembly far easier to accomplish. 2 and 3/4 inch bolt. Now, all bolts are started, but still loose at this point. Now I'm going to tighten the side to the front 5-inch bolt first. The 3 bolts that run up the vertical member between the sides and the front. These do not need to be extremely tight. They need to be snug. This is the cross member, the shipping cross member that we removed from the bottom of the front frame. You should retain this somewhere, because in the event that you need to disassemble this door and transport it somewhere, Jersey Tactical recommends that you reinstall this bar on the bottom. It is possible to bend this upper frame tube if you were to be rough with this without that lower frame, this lower support tube in place.
And that would be during transportation.
That would be during transportation only of the individual components.
There's a ladder. They're going to install the cross member here. It's important to remember that you don't want to over tighten the bolts on the base plate or the side pieces to this. There should be a little bit of slack in there and some play. That's going to allow you to put that cross member in without fighting it. This is going to be threaded as well, so take your time. Make sure you do not cross thread these bolts. There's 2 bolts, 1 on each end. Again, make sure you take your time and do not cross thread them. Alright, so we're going and cinching down the bolts, making them tight. They have a nut, a washer, and a lock nut on them. The order, just so everybody knows, a lot of people don't know that. Nick and I were just talking about it. The flat washer, the large washer goes first, and then the smaller lock nut or lock washer with the split in it goes on, and then the actual nut. For purposes of assembly, looking at the back of the door, you would start with the upper left-hand corner and then work your way down to the base plate, tightening as you go, and then back up to the cross member, and then we're going to come across and we would go ahead and do the cross member, the top bolt, and then work our way back down to the base plate. So we want to do it in that order, and that will keep this square and true in years of function.
It's important to note that this is not a fully assembled breeching door. This surface, when you receive it, will be covered in plywood with 2 striker plates, one up high and one located in the main lock area. We're showing you this to show you the reinforcement that's present in the striking area. There will be no assembly required of the plywood or striker planks on the face of the door.